been to Warwick Castle?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
yes. Are you ready?
Oh no.
This castle was twice as large as Warwick Castle. Would you?
Oh yeah.
I mean, look at it now. Warwick Castle is a castle. It's what we say intact. It hasn't been taken down. This one was taken down, stone by stone. It wasn't blown up. It wasn't attacked in any way at all. It was just taken down by law. Yes. Very, very sad. Because if it was still standing, you would see this castle for miles and miles and miles. You lived within the castle grounds. Because
That makes me sound really posh.
it does. Your house was within
About
the
10 years
castle
ago.
grounds. This castle owned, when we get up there, it owned everything that you can see and more besides. So this was a very wealthy castle, very rich castle in the end. And it became a royal castle too. And that was its downfall. Ultimately, that's why it was taken down stone by stone. But I will come to that later. First of all, I'm going to walk you up just a little bit to where those trees are there. Okay? Up of this hill. And it was all to do with a gentleman called William of Normandy. He lived in Normandy in France. He had been supposedly promised the crown of England. He was extremely upset when he didn't get it. Somebody else got it. A man called Harold got the crown. So he's in Normandy, sitting there thinking, what's happened here? So upset was he that he put an army together, which we refer to as the Norman Army. He brought them across the Channel. They landed at a place called Hastings in October 1066. On the 14th of October, the King, Harold, our king at that time, had eventually arrived. It was a long journey and he had lots of things to do, but he eventually got to just outside Hastings and met with William's army, and a battle, the Battle of Hastings, 1066, took place. Harold was killed during that battle with an arrow through his eye. Yes, supposedly. We're not absolutely sure, but that's kind of what the evidence says. William then thinks, well, right, I'm king. This is what I want. And so he pronounces himself King of England. His army and himself marched to London, and on Christmas Day, 1066, he is crowned William I of England. But people here aren't happy. When he hears it, there's booing outside. He's very concerned. And so he decides to travel up the country, persuading the English people that he is now their king. Whether they like it or not, he's their king. He shows the English people how they will do what they're told. He became known as William the Conqueror. I don't know if you've heard of him. Yes, because he conquered the land as he travelled up here with his army. They get to Tutbury, or Tutbury as it was called. Tutbury. Tutbury. I think that's better. It's a lovely name. They have a problem. They have a problem with supporters of Harold who had died at the battle. There are little groups of these supporters in the land out there, and they get together and they rise up against him. But that's no good, because his army had them down. And William then says, I need a castle. I want a castle built as quickly as possible on the highest point so that it can be seen by the Saxons out there. They look up at it, they see this castle, they think William is our king, whether we like it or not. We'll do what he says. So he asks a gentleman called Hugh de Vanche from France to build a castle as quickly as possible. But he can't build it in stone. It would take too long. So he discovers that out there is enough material to use to build this castle quickly. And this is at the point when I'm talking to groups of children, I say, what do you think it is? But I'm not going to. Because they give me bricks. Oh yeah, sand, all kinds of things. He discovered wood. Because there was a giant forest around here all the way around. And it was called the Forest of Needwood. And there's a village down the road called Burton Riverside. And he used the wood from the forest and built this enormous castle. It took him just over a year. He started in 1068, he had finished at the beginning of 1069. Incredible. Absolutely amazing. William was so impressed. He said, you can't stay at Tutbury. I need you at a city called Chester. You've got to build me a castle there. So Hugh leaves Tutbury and William finds another gentleman to look after it. A gentleman with the most wonderful name. He was called Henri de Villiers et Chambray. Lovely. But unfortunately for him, it wasn't a name that went down very well with the Saxons out there. It was too French. And he liked the place, so he changed it. Anglicised it, made it sound more English. And he became known not as Henri de Villiers et Chambray, as Henry de Where is she? She's there, laughing. That's right, and Jackie used to teach at Tutbury School, named after the family that took this over. So, if I could take you back in a time machine to when the de Ferrers family first came here, they wouldn't have come up that hill, probably wouldn't have walked either. You did, or certainly not in a car. They wouldn't have come up that way, they would have entered our castle from here. That was the main entrance. You've got to use your imagination. Take away the weeds and the brambles. Imagine great processions of people coming up that hill. Flags waving, particularly in this breeze. Perhaps even trumpets blowing as they come up here. And as they come up here, they know that they are being watched all the time. They've been watched since they entered the Ferrers Valley. Way in the distance, where on the horizon they had been watched. When they got to, you know this, where Richard Wakefield School is,
Yes.
at the edge of the field,
Yes.
was the outside wall of the main part of the castle.
Wow. Okay.
So you would have had a watch there. So they would have had to pass that one as well before they even got to this field here. They would have crossed the field, crossed a little stream called the Mill Fleet, soldiers were based. And as you can see, the windows are facing the entrance. We had high walls all the way round that soldiers would patrol around. Now, I'm going to take you forward in time to when the castle became a royal castle. This happened at the end of the De Ferrers' reign. The last of the De Ferrers lost the castle. He tried to hang on to it, his family had tried many times, but with a wooden castle, the only way it could be taken was to burn it down. And it was nearly burnt down 1, 2, 3 times. 2 of which were attacked by kings who wanted this castle. Henry II wanted it, and then Henry III of England wanted it. Henry III didn't get it, the De Ferrers hung on to it, but then something happened with the last of the De Ferrers, which meant Henry III could get his hands on it. Not through war or anything like that. Robert de Ferrers, Earl of Derby as he was then, did something very silly. It was an act of what we call in this country treason, an act of treason, a crime against the country and the king. He was taken prisoner by the king, and the punishment for treason would have been execution. But Henry III was clever, and he realised, I've got the owner of Tutbury Castle in my hands, in my grasp. And so he said to Robert de Ferrers, you've got a choice. I'm going to waiver, that cancel the execution. To save your life, you've got a choice. You can either pay me a fine, or you can give me your castle. The king made the fine so great, poor old Robert de Ferrers hadn't got the money, and the king knew he hadn't. So he only had one choice. He had to give the king his castle. And that's when it became a royal castle from then on. So English kings and queens have owned this castle. Whenever they were crowned King of England, Queen of England, they got this castle and many, many, many other castles, palaces, great mansions, acres and acres of land. Part of what we refer to as the Duchy of Lancaster. So today, would you believe it, this is actually owned by King Charles III. This is his castle. He hasn't been here yet. We often say you could bring a tent, he could pitch up in the centre, but no, he hasn't been. One day, hopefully, fingers crossed, he will come. His mother, Elizabeth II, came twice. Once in 1957 and again in 1984. On both occasions, you would never have been around. Well before your time. Yes. And in a bit, you'll see the evidence of when she came the very first time. But now the castle is royal. We go through all the Henrys owning it. Henry VIII owned this castle. He came here when he was a young sporty prince with his first wife, Catherine of Aragon. We think he might have just come here when he was first married to Anne Boleyn, but we haven't got enough evidence to make that firm. After that, he's had a terrible accident. He got very fat. He didn't come here again. Then we move on to his daughter, Elizabeth I, which is probably the most famous period in Tutbury's history. When she is crowned Queen of England, she gets the castle. She's never been here before. She never came at all. The only royal we now know, who own this castle, except for Charles III, who own this castle and never came to stay or visit the place. And the reason she never came was because she kept this as a prison. A prison for another queen. Now, just as we move on, just imagine, and I can tell you this in good faith, because the lady we're about to talk about wrote in great detail about this castle, and she describes coming up this hill. She rides herself. Her name is Mary, Queen of Scotland. We call her Mary, Queen of Scots nowadays. She rides her horse up here with lots of people surrounding her. She's being watched by the soldiers in the defensive tower. She is here as a prisoner of Elizabeth I. So we're going to move round now so that I can show you where she entered and the rest of the castle. So we'll just stop in front of the gateway to John of Gaunt's Gate. Where if we'd have had a drawbridge, there would have been a drawbridge. But we never had a drawbridge. We just didn't need one. Mm-hmm. We had a moat, but then you see a moat, a ditch, very deep ditch. Mm-hmm. It ran all the way around that side, and it stopped where that hill is inside. It didn't come round here. Mm-hmm. We didn't need it because the other side of there, straight drop. So you didn't need it. Okay. And also, oh gosh, most people think of Norman castles, we call them Motte and Bailey castles, and I'll explain what that is in a minute when we get inside. We think of them as having water inside the moat, this ditch. We never did. Never had water. We didn't need it at all. We were one of the few castles in this country and across Europe actually that didn't have water. There weren't many in their moat, and the reason is under our feet. We are built on stone, which means that anybody who tries to tunnel underneath the moat to come inside the main part of the castle would take years. They'd probably be so old by the time they got inside they hadn't got the energy to fight. Besides which they would have been discovered well before. The Normans' one of the reasons for putting water in a moat was security, not just by people being able to cross it, but underneath as well. So if the castle is built on earth, if someone tries to tunnel under the moat through the earth, the weight of the water in the moat will collapse the tunnel. So we didn't need that here because we've got stone. So we are very secure. So the moat came up to this gate here. There was a bridge, but it wasn't a drawbridge. Reason being, if you got this far, the castle wanted you. If they didn't want you, you'd have never even got that far to the main entrance at all. Okay. And you'll understand why in a minute. When we get inside, you'll see. Okay. So we're going to go through the main gate. This is called John of Gaunt's Gate. Again, soldiers at the top, this was where the constable, the gentleman who was in charge of the soldiers at the castle, would have been situated. These were his rooms. Go through the gate. You're going to enter the main part of the castle. And I'm going to let you in because you're a nice bunch. So we're going to go through here, and we're just going to go into this section here. There. Now, if I had realised that, I shouldn't have let you in, then action stations. That gate will close. There once was a gate at the end of this building here. That would close. Above us were rooms here. So this was a walkway, a tunnel that led into the main part. So when you looked up, you just saw the floor of the rooms above. And if you were stuck then between that gate and that gate, the ceiling would open up and they would throw anything they could find at you. Anything. Literally. This was called a murder hole. Okay. So you wouldn't have got out of here at all. I love this bit. The gentleman just found it. And did you say, no, you could do, please. Go have a look. It's a brilliant, have a look. You can see out of what we call I do apologise, if you're a historian, I'm a very old-fashioned. I was brought up a long time ago on history. And we called this an arrow slit.
Okay.
Nowadays, they call it an arrow loop. Yeah. And I don't worry, I questioned historians and specialists about this, and he said, no, don't worry, Sue, you've got it right. That is an arrow slit. Yeah. The ones with the loop, he said, you can see there's a little round bit on the top of them. Yeah. So that is an arrow slit. Have a look at it. You can see it's facing the entrance that we've just walked round. So if there's a soldier there and you're not wanted, they can pick you up.
Pick you up easily.
Usually they made the same in towers, yeah?
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
Yeah.
that's right. Yes. All right, let's try it. The motte and bailey of our castle. We have a bailey, a Norman bailey, flat area, and we have a motte, which is the hill up there. And on top of the motte is what isn't the keep. It's nothing to do with our castle, that building. It was built as a ruin. In the 1700s, people who were looking after the castle for the royal family wanted to invite visitors here, and nobody could see Tutbury Castle from anywhere, so they said, oh, we'll build a ruin on top of that hill so that it can be seen, and that's why it's up there. So this is cheating. It is cheating, although it's actually quite pretty when you go up there. But it was built. Can you see what look like cannon fire holes on the top of the main building there? That's cheating. The same people did that to the castle as well. So it looks as if it was attacked. Never was. It never was. They just built it. They took out the bricks to look as if it was attacked. So we've got the bailey, the flat bit. If I could take you back again to when the castle was thriving, we know that in this section here, there were nearly 1,000 people, just this bit here, living in little huts all the way round. There's little cardboard alleyways winding their way round the chapel in the centre. And those little huts would be on those little cobbled ways. So the noise in here must have been tremendous. The smells must have been tremendous as you walked in. 1,000 people, and that doesn't include, now into royal territory, the royals living in the main apartments over there. Gosh, what a difference it is. If anybody could come now from that period, they think, what? This isn't the same place. So yes, we have got Tutbury Castle. Now, I'm going to take you back to Mary, Queen of Scotland. Do you remember she is a prisoner of Elizabeth I? This castle was intact. It was a magnificent castle. Mary is brought here with a group of people, a lot of them, who come here to look after her. We call it an entourage. So she has an entourage of nearly 60 people, and she comes through that gate on her horse again with these nearly 60 people. And for the first time since Elizabeth has had her taken prisoner, she realizes what it's going to be like as a prisoner of Elizabeth I. And she says, and witnesses describe it as well, she says that she is physically sick and has to be carried off her horse at that particular point there. And they carry her across to the royal apartments over there. Now, she is a prisoner, but she isn't behind bars. She is what we call under house arrest. So she is put in the royal apartments that first time. She has the luxury of the royal bedchamber, and she has what we term a garderobe, a medieval toilet, which Elizabeth I had built into that tower with the flag. And it was basically a room with a hole in the wall, and there's your toilet. Anything went out the hole and down into the moat the other side. When Mary was here that first time, if she needed to make use of the garderobe, she had to ask, and 2 soldiers accompanied her. One stood out beside the door, the other one went round to the other side of the tower on the moat to see what came down from the garderobe, just in case she did. So yeah, although she is on house arrest, it's still, she's watched all the time, and she has to ask for things. She is allowed to walk around here. She's able to use the chapel in the centre. She's able to use the church at the bottom. She can walk through the village. We know she did. We know she rode through the village because the village was within the castle grounds, so she was secure. They knew where she was. If she wanted to do anything else outside the castle, then she had to have permission from the highest person. So we have Mary here the first time in the royal apartments. The second time she comes here as a prisoner, she's in the royal apartments. And the third time she comes, she's in the apartments, but life is getting harder. She hasn't got so many people to look after her. The last time she comes here, the 4th and final time she comes here, she isn't put in the royal apartments. So this is nearly 19 years of imprisonment, not quite, but nearly. She is put, and you can have a look at it later where it was, a little wooden lodge. I say little, but she called it little. A little wooden lodge over there. She was put in there, and she hated it. Absolutely hated it. She said it was cold. She said it was damp. She said the wind whistled through the holes in the wood. And she was having to do some of the jobs inside there herself. She hadn't got any servants now to look after her. She had 1, 2, 3, 4 ladies in waiting, but that was all in that little wooden lodge. Do you know the story of Mary, Queen of Scots at all?
A bit.
I don't know if
Just from TV.
just for the TV.
Yeah.
Don't listen to that. Our curator will be. She said, forget that. You know, it says that she speaks Scottish. Well, she's been in France and she was knee-high to a grasshopper, so she'd lost her Scottish accent. She might have a slight twang. She spoke French. You know, she was fluent. She was married. She was the Queen of France, after all. So there was lots of things. In that one, it says that her and Elizabeth meet. We've no evidence that they ever met at all. And Elizabeth never came here, even after she had after the execution. She never came because she didn't want to make their relationship closer. So yeah, it's difficult, isn't it, to believe that. But when she was in the little wooden lodge, 19 years of imprisonment, she really felt as if her life was over. She'd left her little baby son James in Scotland. He was only a couple of weeks old when she'd had to give the throne of Scotland over to him and ask Elizabeth for help because she'd been imprisoned in Scotland. Nobody had rescued her. Lots of people had tried to and promised to, but nobody had. She couldn't see where this was going. While she was in there, beer was being delivered in giant barrels from a brewery in Derby. It came to the castle, and in the top of the beer barrels was discovered messages going to Mary. And these claimed to come from a group of 6 men led by a gentleman called Babington. And he says, we wish to rescue you. We wish to get rid of Elizabeth from the throne, remove Elizabeth from the throne, and we are going to rescue you, Mary, and put you on the throne of England. She takes no notice at first, luckily, because she doesn't know that the jailer here has found them, and he's been told to watch them, to let them keep coming, but to read them, put them back, and see if she replies. And the jailer at the time, I don't know where Jackie is, the jailer at the time was a man called Amos Paulet.
Yes, indeed.
After the Paulet school. And they carry on, letting the messages come. She's very ill in that little lodge, and Mary requests to be moved. Amos Paulet, her jailer, says, yes, I will move you. He struggles to find somewhere he can move her to at this late date. He was going to put her in one of his own houses, but Elizabeth's what we would term her spy master general says, no, it's not secure enough, no. So she is sent to another castle called Chartley, quite a distance from here. But her jailer goes with her, Amos goes with her, and he is told he must carry on having beer delivered from this company in Derby, and to keep reading these letters, these notes, intercepting them, which he does. When Mary gets to Chartley, she's had enough. That's it. So she actually does the worst thing that she could ever do, and she replies to one of these messages. Amos Paulet finds it in the secret hiding place, the top of the beer barrel, takes it to Elizabeth I, Spy Master General, and he says, right, that's it, we've got enough. That message goes to Elizabeth. She's told, there's your evidence of treason. And so Mary is arrested and taken to a castle called Fotheringay, where she's put on trial and executed for treason. So the plot, this was actually a plot. it was all, although the 6 men were being used, they were being watched all the time. Elizabeth could have stopped it right at the beginning, but she didn't. Her spy master general told those concerned to carry on with it until they got the desired result, which they did in the end. So a very sad story. So yeah, inside the castle. Tell you what, do you fancy going upstairs? No, just starting to rain. I can feel a bit of rain. Shall we go upstairs and I'll show you? You can have a little mooch round upstairs, and there's some seats actually. You can sit down as well. Very welcome to go into the King's bedroom and have a little look at the costumes next door too. Just would you like me to?
Oh, that's nice.
Of her on the wall there, but it isn't her. It's our curator dressed as Elizabeth I. And now oh, there she is. Look, can you see her right at the back? That's Elizabeth. We interpret that as Mary, Queen of Scots. It's beautiful.
The all of bed in every castle is so short.
Yes.
Not for tall people.
No.
Yeah.
Exactly. No. Mary, Queen of Scots, was tall. She was 5'11".
How is it?
So that
meters?
would be like that. So most men were between 5'11" and 5'8". Most women were 5'3", possibly 5'4", and shorter. So when Mary, Queen of Scots came into a room, she was taller than all of the women in the room, and she was taller than most of the men. So it gave her what we say charisma.
Yeah.
She came in and everybody turned to look at her because she had the most beautiful, in those times, the most beautiful
fireplaces,
auburn hair, a auburn reddish colour hair, which she used to let flow. And she was regarded as a beauty of the time. Possibly not today, but at that time, yeah.